All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
It is the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. Albert is here. Mark Thompson is not here, and I think we can all imagine why. The fires raging in Southern California meant that Mark and Courtney decided to leave their house last night. So they have fled to safer territory, and that meant that he couldn't be here for the show today. But they are safe and they are okay. And I can imagine, after having lost a house to the fires in Southern California previously, that this was a little PTSD for them. So they packed up the animals, packed up everything they needed, and did not wait this time for the mandatory order, but left ahead of time, especially because it just looked like overnight they didn't know what was going to happen. So they did get to safety. They are okay. And here we are. And what a week for this show. 5 days ago, my dad died. And so I was kind of trying to take a back seat. I didn't want you guys to see the ugly cry. So between my dad dying and the fires in Southern California, it's been a doozy. Anything going on with you, Albert?
Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, no.
Exactly.
Just normal for me.
I'm telling you. Well, today on the Mark Thompson Show, we have John Rothman, who will be along to talk politics in just a few minutes. Belinda Weymouth with It's the Planet Stupid. That segment in question today, because Belinda Weymouth is also located in Southern California. And I was talking to her last night, and she said that a branch from a neighbor's tree had fallen onto their roof in the high winds. And she wasn't sure what was going to happen as far as the overnight hours and what that meant for her. I know. So she is likely not going to be here for It's the Planet Stupid, but we do have some environmental stories to pass on to you. So we'll do something, but I'm just not sure if Belinda will be here to do it. So kind of a crazy show as we start the Mark Thompson Show on this Wednesday. Let's talk about these fires and first get into it. Crazy winds last night, more than 60 miles an hour. And those winds spread little spot fires all over the place. Let's take a look, listen to a little more information here with the Pacific Palisades fire.
Here in Southern California, the worst winds here in over a decade. I want you to hear something. That hissing sound just happened a few seconds ago. It's a gas, I think, pipe that is exploded in that house behind us that just burst into flame within the past 5 or 6 minutes. Hundreds of homes in Pacific Palisades, the epicenter of the worst fires, have burned, including much of the downtown area. And I want you to notice how the embers are being cast by this fire, being blown downrange by this, I don't know, at this point, 20, 30 mile per hour wind. And that is causing additional fires. This is completely out of control at this point. Firefighters cannot get a grip on this fire. The wind is set to persist for many hours, even until tomorrow morning. So it's not going to get any better. We don't know of any fatalities or injuries just yet, but I just want to give you the scope.
Yeah, that's Matt Gutman from ABC.
Absolutely apocalyptic.
We do know that 2 people have died. We know that multiple people have been injured. There was one report I was seeing about a bunch of people who'd been burned walking toward a restaurant. So obviously emergency crews are completely taxed. This is crazy. This video from, I believe, Natasha Chen shows the destruction on both sides of a highway here. At one point, we can see, oh, this is just amazing. We've seen images like this before from the town of Paradise, where it just looks like apocalyptic, where you don't know if, you're going to even get out of this roadway. I saw a report last night where a reporter and her crew got themselves into a pretty rough situation. And the video on CNN shows them having to try to, in an emergency, extract themselves from this. It's hard when you're a reporter to know, is it safe to go in? Is it safe not to go in? You can see these amazing houses, mansions, a lot of celebrity homes burning to the ground. This is a horrible situation. There was another video I wanted to show you. Oh, here's people were parking their cars and just leaving. just getting out. We've seen video before in other fires of the flames sweeping over and people dying in their vehicles. We saw that in Lahaina, Maui. And so I can imagine, when you're in the car and you see the flames coming, you just want to park and go. The problem is the firefighters can't get to the fire. And so they had to bring bulldozers in to scoop all of these cars parked in the middle of the roadway of the freeway out of the way so that the fire crews could make their way to fight the fires. There were some celebrities. I believe it was, who was it? I have it. Steve Guttenberg, an actor who lives in this area and was pleading with people, please don't park your cars. And if you do, leave the keys in so people like me, he said, can come and move them. Finally, the fire department just came and bulldozed all these cars out of the way. Just an extra thing to worry about. There was video, though, of horses. Can we do the horses video? Because this is so sad. People with large animals trying to get themselves and their animals to safety. In this case, just a reporter talking to these folks with at least 12 horses in this area. And you see the video and you think, why is she talking to them? Let them go. At the end, they're wishing her safety and she's wishing them safety, but it's a firestorm with these sparks raining down everywhere. You can see why the spot fires have started, but these people are trying to get their horses to safety, and they managed to just let some other of their horses go free. So very scary situation for these people trying to get these animals out of there. It is scary. See if we can we hear some sound on that one, though? I know the sound is a little spotty.
What is that, 9? How would you put that? 11, 12. There's 12. Yeah, no, they're pretty wired up. Yeah. They're getting used to it now, but when the wind's blowing and the embers they don't really know what to do.
They're so nice.
Have you seen anything like this? Look at that hillside. Yeah, I've rescued.
Yeah, they're so nice. I mean, to talk to her, because you can tell what all they're trying to do is just get the heck out. There were more than 3,000 people that were trying to get out of the Los Angeles area. This fire, I think they were in the Altadena area, so that would be the Eaton Canyon fire in the San Gabriel Mountains above Altadena. That, by this morning, had burned 3.5 square miles. This is just, the video to me is unreal. These two people that were escorting their horses down the street as the flames were coming pretty close. The reporter there is Gina Silva, and they were talking about how they're trying to rescue these horses, and the embers are just still flying everywhere. The folks with the horses were asked how many animals they have, and they said, there's a couple we let loose that we're trying to get as many as we can out, so they don't know where a lot of their animals even are. Really, really scary. And the woman said there's a bunch of horses still in there. So just thoughts to them, and hope everybody is safe in that area. Hope they get those animals out. Really scary. Wouldn't it be quicker to ride the horses, says Mars? Perhaps, but maybe not safe. I don't know. I mean, maybe in that time where you have to wear the mask and the glasses, you can't really see where you're going. I don't know the answer. God forbid, says Ronnie Q, what the ones whose homes did not burn down when they try to get remediation from their insurance companies too. We've already seen insurance rates, go through the roof, and then you have something like this and they go even higher, making California yet even more affordable, right? Judy says, I'm glad he made it out safely, but James Woods is an a-hole. I don't feel too sorry for him. I think we have the video of James Woods, who was on, I think, CNN today, talking about the way that he had to escape from this. So let's take a listen to this.
One of the people who did evacuate yesterday is actor James Woods, who is in Beverly Hills. Thank you for joining us. Talk to us. What have you seen?
Well, we were literally in the exact epicenter of the fire as it started. That's actually a view from my porch.
Yep,
that's the
video
house
you
one
shot.
below us
Yep.
on fire. Yeah, My neighbor called and he said a fellow named Robert Trinkteller was about 5 houses up. You have to understand the Palisades is almost like an old-fashioned neighborhood. Sidewalks, all the neighbors know each other. We all have each other's phone numbers, and people are very aware that we're in a fire zone. And in fact, I had said day before yesterday, to my wife Sarah, I said, "Oh, that guy on the hillside hasn't cut down his grass. They got to cut down that brush because there's going to be a fire." And that's the person who didn't cut that brush was a person, that fire you're looking at right now. That's my pool right there. That was the brush below us that was not cut. And so we went out. I had a record of the call. In 17 minutes later, we were evacuated with the clothes on our back. Our garage door wouldn't open because the wind was so bright, it torqued the door. And we finally got out. When we got to the bottom of the hill, I said, "Oh my God, we have a neighbor who's 94 years old who has dementia." And I said, there were no cars on the driveway. And we would go over and help him get in his chair, sometime if he fell with the caregiver. But I knew he was in the hospital. And I don't know, God was on his side. I decided to call his son in Massachusetts and said, "Hey, Francis, just to be sure, your dad's still in the hospital, right?" He said, "No, he got home last night. And there's a new caregiver and I don't have the number." And they wouldn't let us back up. So I finally got through to 911 and said, "A welfare check, you got to go check on this guy." Well, there was a miscommunication. And I called my neighbor who hadn't evacuated yet. He was on his roof, fighting his fire. He'd been on my roof. He'd hosed my roof down. I said, "Go in and check on him." He went. He said, "The door's open. There's nobody here." He went in and yelled. He said, "No, nobody here." I said, "Look, just go behind the pantry. There's a little room. We can see him during the day. He likes to sit there because there's a garden." He went in and found him. He'd been left alone. Okay. And it turned out the fire department made the new caregiver leave. And, she just does what she was told. They said, "We're coming back for him." Well, they hadn't come back for him. I'm hoping that they would have. But, there was so much chaos. It was like an inferno. Every house was on fire around us. And, he got him out and the house burned down about an hour later. He would have been in there alone. It was just.
So that's the story of James Wood today. Yeah, pretty scary. And I see a lot of negative comments about him. But you know what? Whether you like an actor or their political stance or whatever, it's an emotional moment to go through something like that. And so my heart goes out to everybody who had to leave their home, who doesn't know if their home is safe or not. And he's a good neighbor for checking on that man and making sure he's okay. So I'll say that. Pretty scary. The fires continue. I have a niece at UCLA. The folks at UCLA sent out messages to the student body saying that classes are not canceled. And even though the fire is close and there's been no evacuation orders for the campus yet. So I'm keeping a close eye on that.
I think Biden and Gavin are live right now. If you want to go check that out.
I'd love to take a look.
I don't know if the audio is good or not, but we'll check it out.
Yeah, let's find out.
City and, of course, President Joe Biden, who was present there with Governor Gavin Newsom. They have been in communication since the start of this disaster. We can now declare it a disaster.
And thank goodness
a national
that President
disaster.
Biden is still in office during this.
Yesterday, early in the day. And so they gave us the latest rundown on the status of those fires. They were filling in the president about the firefight. And then we did hear some remarks, but unfortunately the mics weren't great and we couldn't hear what he was saying.
The sound wasn't good. Yeah, what I do know is that Governor Gavin Newsom quickly called the president, who said, yes, disaster declaration approved. And thank goodness, because in just a few days, maybe it wouldn't have been. Also, I do know that President Biden was due to be in California to talk about designating 2 new national monuments here in California. And so the speeches for those have been pushed back because of everything else. So it's good to see that Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden are working together. And hopefully the folks that are affected by this fire will be made whole. And at least we know that that help is coming to California thanks to President Biden. Let's talk a little bit, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Meta and what's going on with Facebook. I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but they're dumping the fact checkers. Apparently, lies are all okay in the name of free speech on Facebook. We have some video from Mark Zuckerberg, who's talking about the political landscape changing. So I guess depending on who's president, lies are okay versus not okay. Seems crazy to me, but this is what's happening. And I think we all know that social media has played a big role in misinformation already, and it seems like it's about to get a lot worse. So I think Albert has the video of Mark Zuckerberg. Let's take a listen to what he's got in store for Facebook and Instagram.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US.
What?
After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed. So we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas.
Oh,
as we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams.
That is
Finally,
just crazy.
We're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The U.S. has the
pause it for a second, Albert, because let's just focus on that. Take the fact checking out well, first of all, get rid of it, and then take the team out of California and put it in Texas, because we all know that the truth is different in Texas than it is in California. No, the truth is the truth. Are you kidding me? It's just wild, wild. Vilma writes that, yes, I saw it come through. She says Zuckerberg, there it is the seller to Trump. Yeah. Audrey says this is an embarrassment. He's droning on and on. Embarrassment for his prior behavior. Zuckerberg. This is crazy. I mean, I don't understand. He's lived the Santa Cruz life with Michelle. Says, I don't think he has the people's best interest at heart, just his. I think that's absolutely right. Less concern about bias in old Texas, says Ronnie IQ. Building trust, right, Stilette? If we're worried about what social media is doing, watch it go downhill. And we can say, all right, we're just going to leave Facebook. We're just going to leave Instagram. But many people won't. And many people will face that disinformation. Community notes, that's what we're going to. Who reads the community notes? Do you want to make sure that, what you just heard isn't a lie? So let me read for, the next 20 minutes, all the community notes. I don't know. Gordon says, I'm okay if some free speech is blocked on Facebook, if Trump's lies are blocked. I'm even okay if, something I write that's maybe true or doesn't need to be flagged gets flagged and I get a suspension from Facebook. I'd be okay with that in the name of keeping the truth true. But I'm from California and y'all know we're biased over here. JB says Facebook isn't news anyway. Right. But a lot of people don't know that because there are legitimate sources that pop up on Facebook. We see it with the fires. You see video of the fires from just random people posting what they have seen out their window. You have news organizations that are posting stories. So it's hard for some people to really figure out which part is the real news and which part are the lies and the AI and the stuff that isn't accurate. I don't fault people for not understanding, but I do fault Facebook for not making it more clear. Karen says, how about improving fact-checking rather than discarding it? That's a novel concept. So Facebook, be forewarned, and Instagram, it's about to be the wild, wild west, as if it hasn't always been. But everything you see, if you are still on these platforms, everything you see, take with a grain of salt. And that means you walk away from Facebook. Is it worth it to spend your time on a place where you don't know what's true and you don't know what isn't true? I'm pretty disappointed. But in that video, Mark Zuckerberg was wearing something that caught the attention of some folks. That's pretty expensive. Let's do a little micro version of That's Rich.
Who are they?
The top 1/10 of 1%.
What are they like?
These people are so posh and snobby, they're snotty.
That's Rich on the Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, yes. In the video that we just saw, Mark Zuckerberg was wearing a watch worth more than $900,000. It is a Grubel 4C handmade one, which retails for $895,000 before any taxes or fees. So as he's telling us how this is going to go and how the teams will be moved out of California now based in Texas and how the fact checkers are going to be let go, he's got this watch that almost costs $1 million on his wrist. Is that's definitely rich. Is that, I mean, just indicative of the whole reason for the speech anyway, as he tries to ingratiate himself with MAGA and with Trump and tries to make sure that the rules are on his side, that he kind of gets the same Elon Musk treatment because he's on the side of MAGA. And it's all to make sure that he gets lucrative deals and that the money that he's making still rolls on in. The watches apparently are a new thing for him. saw somebody wearing a watch and thought that was just the most amazing thing. And so now he's decided, after never having been a watch guy, that he's going to be collecting watches. This is, again, a Grubel Forsey. They say, this company, that only 2 or 3 of the handmade one pieces are produced every year. They are crafted 95% by hand-operated tools, and a single timepiece requires 6,000 hours to make, which is apparently why it costs almost $1 million. So, but he has other $1 million watches as well. He's now got a collection. He has been seen wearing luxury timepieces by Patek Philippe, Jaeger LeCoultre, de Bethune, 2 pieces by F.P. Journe. According to Forbes, Zuckerberg surpassed Oracle's Larry Ellison on Monday to become the world's 3rd wealthiest person, with a net worth of more than $217 billion. So, he's got the money for these watches, and
He's
apparently
kind of got a wardrobe change too. This isn't the Zuckerberg that we remember.
Because we used to see him in the plain black tee with just the hoodie, and now he's kind of sporting the necklace and the t-shirt with some writing on it.
Yeah,
yeah, he's getting a little more fancy these days.
And with his $1 million watches, sure, yeah.
There you go. Well, and we got to make sure that money keeps rolling in, and that's rich.
More on how the other half lives.
These people aren't just rich, they're crazy rich.
Next time on The Mark Thompson Show.
It is time to welcome John Rothman to the show, a political analyst, a presidential historian, and here he is, former KGO talk show host. It's John Rothman, everybody. Yay.
Kim, first of all, I want to extend my sympathy on the loss of your father.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Send you lots of love.
Yeah, thanks, John Rothman. It's been a rough one. My dad is really important to me. I'm sure everyone's dad is important to them, but I just had a really close bond with him. So this is going to be a hard one. But so that I don't break down in emotional turmoil, let's talk about Trump, because I know.
Can we talk about fires for a minute?
Oh, sure, yeah.
I just have to tell you, I've talked with a number of my friends in Southern California. This is an unmitigated disaster. Yeah. Palisades High School went up in flames.
Yep.
The Jewish community center that exists has gone up in flames in Pasadena. This is devastating. And we have to be aware that this is going to be an ongoing problem, because climate change is the driver of this force. It doesn't mean there haven't been other fires in Southern California. I remember the Bel Air fire in 1961. But all I can tell you is this is an unmitigated disaster. And I did a podcast this morning for the Voice of San Francisco talking about the vulnerability of San Francisco itself. We do not have adequate pumping system to get water into our city if we have a problem, whether it's an earthquake or a fire. So these are the things that are on my mind. And of course, all of my friends in Southern California, all of whom are affected one way or the other. One other point. We know how difficult it is to get insurance already here in the San Francisco area. Do you know the insurance costs on what has happened in Southern California will drive the insurance companies to the brink? And so this is something else we have to think about. This is a disaster of the first magnitude, and people need to understand the ramifications are incredible.
I was talking to my husband about our insurance costs last night, and we realized that since last year at this time, we have our homeowners and our auto insurance with the same carrier, and it's kind of bundled together, and the cost doubled. It doubled. And we don't live in a high fire zone. We don't live in a low fire zone, but we don't live in a high fire zone. And this area hasn't burned. But I can't imagine people that live in Malibu, in the canyons, in those areas that are really high risk, and how much their insurance rates will go up.
And these are things we have to be thinking about.
Yeah.
And this is just the beginning. I mean, these winds, these Santa Ana winds, are supposed to continue for another 24 hours. And the devastation is just Unbelievable.
It's crazy. I did read the winds had shifted and were blowing in a direction that was more favorable. So at least there's that. We hope they don't shift back. But look at all the spot fires. We started with the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire, and now we have two more because of the blowing embers in this area, the Woodley and the Hearst fires. And all I can hope for is that I know we've lost two people in Southern California to these fires, is that it's not a case like Maui where you find out after the fact that there's so much loss of life. So
Can you
hopefully,
check? I haven't heard about the Getty Museum, except there was a slight note that I read that they were impacted by the fire. Is that accurate?
they were threatened that there were priceless artifacts are in the Getty Villa Museum. And I know that it was a threatened area, and I'm not sure if it's still standing, but we'll check. According to Newsweek, 29 minutes ago, the museum was saved. Yeah.
Okay.
The staff there apparently is being praised for preparing for this type of catastrophe as well. There are some people that are frustrated that homes in the area burned, but the museum was somehow saved. And why was that? But they say there were additional fire prevention measures in place at the Getty Museum. They had water storage on site, irrigation immediately
I can
deployed.
attest to that. I was
So,
at the Getty Museum about 6 months ago, and I asked them, what kind of safety precautions do you have? And they told me, we think we're okay. But
mhm.
look at this conflagration. It's just horrifying.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. There were other areas near the Getty Museum that weren't so lucky. The Eames House, the Villa Aurora, and the Thomas Mann House, which are famous structures, did not, I don't think, survive. So, let's switch over to politics because we had this Smith report that is being stalled by Judge Eileen Cannon, who temporarily blocked the Justice Department from releasing Jack Smith's final report from his 2 federal cases against Donald Trump. And we also have
Well, let me just point out, one is dealing with the election interference
Mm.
and election denial, and the other is dealing with the classified documents, which
Yeah.
Donald Trump took with him to Mar-a-Lago.
And we also have now the word from the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, that he does intend to release these reports. So is he legally blocked from doing so? And why would they want to keep this information from us? Will Trump come into office and then squash everything down? What do you think will be happening with these reports? Will we ever get this information?
Yes, we will. First of all, Donald Trump wants them suppressed because obviously they are not complementary to his conduct.
Mhm.
But I happen to believe that there will be a release. Certainly, there will be a leak at some point. I understand that the Mr. Smith's report is extensive, thorough, and complete, and it ought to be revealed. I think it's, I felt the same way about the Nixon tapes. You can't hide from history, and so it will come out. And Donald Trump, if there was nothing there, should have said, please release it all. The fact that he is trying to cover it up makes it even more important.
Phineas saying Jack Smith needs to leak these documents to the New York Times.
I don't
I
think
don't
he
know.
needs to leak them. They're
No,
going to get out.
You
They
think
will
so?
be released. And
Okay.
it may be, Merrick Garland has a tough situation. A lot of people are very critical of Merrick Garland. He knows that part of the criticism is that he did not move more quickly in the case of Donald Trump. He is now looking, I think, to his legacy. It has to be released, and he wants it released on his watch.
It is outrageous to think that the release of these reports, paid for by taxpayers who funded these investigations, would not be made public.
Well,
If
you can
that-
say that, and I see Tammy's comment up on my screen. That happens all the time. There are a million things that taxpayers pay for that we never hear about or see about. But I lived through Watergate, and I know how much Nixon wanted to keep those tapes secret.
Mhm.
And in the end, he was unable to do it. The Pentagon Papers is another great example where there was a leak. I want to remind you that when they were leaked, it created a huge scandal. But in the end, Thank heaven they were released. It gave us tremendous insight. This will come out. You cannot whitewash fact.
Well, it seems like facts are being whitewashed. Now we don't even have fact checkers on Facebook. The truth, who cares about the truth? You just tell enough lies and people start believing that.
And if you contribute enough money to a candidate, and may I tell you, that is the most shocking thing to me. One of the main reasons that Donald Trump won was because of all of the money, more than $200 million, I'm told, that was contributed to his campaign by one of the wealthiest men in the world who now sits at his elbow. Talk about political corruption. It's just to me shameful. I'm going to be teaching a course on the American presidency. We have not seen this kind of corruption since the Warren Harding administration. But ultimately,
Karen, go ahead.
Ultimately, things come out and these will be revealed.
Karen writes, we don't need that report to know how despicable Trump and his behavior was and is. But I want it, Karen and John, I want it on the record. I want it public. I want it on the record. I want everyone to know so that people can't be denying it. I want people to know. I think
that's what's going to happen. You cannot cover up these kinds of things. And I believe that it will come out. I hope it comes out before the end of the Biden administration. I hope that Merrick Garland, as his parting shot as Attorney General, releases the report. That's what I hope.
Murphy says, what difference would the report make? The MAGA crowd didn't believe the January 6th committee either.
Perhaps it's a matter of the record of history. That's what you want. And you cannot run away from your historical record. The January 6th report is fascinating. Please note, I've read it. I have it here in my library. It's a devastating indictment. And the fact that the American people didn't, let me put it this way, I didn't phrase that right, that enough Americans did not understand the significance. Look, thank God Joe Biden has given an award to Benny Thompson and to Liz Cheney, the second highest civilian award available in this country. At the same time, Donald Trump is speaking about prosecuting, or should I say persecuting, both Thompson and Cheney and all the other members of the committee, including Adam Kinzinger. That in itself should be enough to shock the American people. But evidently, whatever Trump does, there is a segment of our society that excuses whatever he does and believes him. And by the way, can you imagine renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America? Can you imagine? And can you imagine annexing Canada or going back over the Panama Canal or seizing Greenland? This is jingoistic talk. It is dangerous. Anyway,
you wonder how realistic he's being. And when he starts talking crazy like this, and we're all focused on this, I wonder what's happening behind the scenes, what fingers are being twiddled over here that's doing real stuff, because we're paying attention to this wild, crazy rhetoric.
No, we're also paying attention to Kash Patel as director of the FBI, an appalling choice. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to run our health. Are you nuts? I mean, yes, there are so many balls in the air that have to be discussed and analyzed. And all we can do is in a constructive, positive, direct fashion, demonstrate our opposition. Did you hear that the governor of Hawaii, who is a physician, you're of Hawaiian descent, I should point out, he is a physician. He came to Washington especially to alert the Congress to the danger of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
And I thank God he's doing it, but will it make a difference? That's the question.
No, I don't think it will make a difference. America,
we have to try. We have to try.
Had decided that this is the direction we're going to go. And so, I mean, I don't know how much more outrageous it can get until we turn around and say, wait a minute, this isn't gonna fly. Let's talk about that though.
We'll talk about Canada for 1 second.
Yeah, I was gonna talk. Let's start with the Gulf of America, actually.
Okay. All right.
Let's start with that. Because what? I mean, you talk about taking care of the Gulf of Mexico, of this waterway. I mean, we're the country that caused this massive oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Am I right? Was that the Exxon Valdez?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is Donald Trump cannot be permitted to rename something. By the way, look at your map. All the maps in the world, the Gulf of Mexico. What he is talking about is absurd. It is ridiculous, and it ought to be condemned universally. So the fact that it isn't is deeply disturbing. Look at what he's talking about with the Panama Canal. Jimmy Carter's passing. And by the way, I was not a fan of Jimmy Carter on many, many levels. I respect many of the things that he did, but there were policies which I absolutely thought were ludicrous. And all I can tell you is when the Panama Canal Treaty was confirmed, Jimmy Carter was president of the United States. By the way, you may recall it was by one vote, the vote of Dennis DeCastini, who was the senator from Arizona at the time. And what Carter did was right. But do you know that every administration has had these doubts? When Clinton was president of the United States and the Panama Canal was transferred to Panamanian Authority, he didn't send anybody from the Clinton administration. Nobody wanted to get near to the 10-foot pole. You know who went down to effect the transfer? Jimmy Carter, as a former president. So all I can tell you is these kind of absurd, ridiculous statements scare the living bejeebers out of me. And not in my lifetime have I seen a president use the bully pulpit so irresponsibly. And it ought to be denounced, not renounced, but denounced by Democrats and Republicans alike. Talk to the people of Denmark about Greenland. Now, what in the world is he talking about? You know, many years ago, Harry Truman floated the idea of our buying Greenland. And of course, it didn't happen. The Danish authorities weren't interested. But the idea that we would seize it by military action, which is what he's talking about, it's in a normal world, what Donald Trump has done would have been denounced by everyone. What's scary is he didn't do it before the election. Or maybe nobody thought he could win the election. Nobody understood. But once you're president of the United States and you have those levers of power at your disposal, well, we better be worried. We better be thoughtful about all of this, 100%.
Regarding Greenland, apparently Donald Trump Jr. Took a plane, arrived on the island, and the president-elect is referring to his eldest son and those accompanying him as representatives. Okay, so these are the Donald Trump Jr. and crew are representing America.
And distributing MAGA hats to anybody who will take them.
Is that, I mean, come on. So
no, that's Donald Trump. Do you understand what scares me? I'm teaching a course on the American presidency right now at the Fromm Institute at the University of San Francisco. We have never had a president act more irresponsibly, or a president-elect act more irresponsibly than Donald Trump. And these ramifications are real. May I ask you a question? If Donald Trump seized Greenland, would NATO then move in to prevent us from doing it? Because Greenland, because of its association with Denmark, is protected as a NATO nation. People aren't thinking about these things. And the people who voted for Donald Trump, I understand why they voted for him. I don't agree with them. But nobody thought that we would see this kind of extreme action, which is just almost incomprehensible.
Well, Greenland is reacting. The Greenlandic Prime Minister Mute Egede says, Greenland is ours. We are not for sale. We will never be for sale. We must not lose our long struggle for freedom. The officials in Denmark are saying that they're not for sale. No, absolutely not.
And the Panamanians are saying, no way are you going to get this canal back. Not a chance. And every time Donald Trump says the Chinese control the Panama Canal, nonsense, rubbish, and factually wrong. But you know what I like to say, Kim? I said it on the radio for years. Don't confuse people with the facts.
Let's move to Canada, because now apparently we're going to annex Canada.
You want me to move to Canada? I'd love to.
51st state. And Justin Trudeau says there's a snowball's chance in hell of that happening. The president-elect Trump is saying he'll use economic force to power his way into making Canada part of the United States. That this whole economic force to annex Canada, this is what Justin Trudeau says. There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will ever become part of the United States.
Not only that, Trump is claiming that he toppled the Prime Minister of Canada. He's making that claim. It's ludicrous.
Here's what part of the beauty of America. You see wars happen in other countries, and war hasn't really touched this country on our soil, other than 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, right? This is, I think, fighting words. And when you start picking fights with your neighbors, changing the wording on maps, trying to say we're going to annex you, we're going to, slap all these economic, I don't know, issues so to force you into becoming part of us.
Tariffs. He's going to slap tariffs.
Is it
Can
all
you
tariffs?
imagine?
Yeah. So we know Canada is already struggling politically. And now this. I just feel like these comments and the effort to do this puts the world more at unease. And I don't like the way that feels.
Well, we have until January 20th when Donald Trump takes power. What will he do when he takes power? Will he keep making statements like this? Will he really Will he really pardon the January 6th insurrectionists? Will he insist on Kash Patel, who is a man who is out for revenge, to be director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation? And he keeps touting Pam Bondi, who is the former Attorney General of Florida and who will become, if he has his way, Attorney General of the United States. Well, she's an election denier. It's appalling. It's absolutely unbelievable. And you know what? These nominations may pass. Will the Republicans in the United States Senate give up their dignity and their sense of what's right and wrong?
Don't you think they already have?
To a degree, but when Donald Trump becomes president, it'll be even worse. And that's what we have to hope they will resist.
What, like that at some point he crosses a line that's even too much for them, as if he hasn't already?
But you understand, they now have the power of advise and consent. Please notice that Donald Trump is no longer talking about recess appointments, which he claimed he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have to hope, maybe it's better to say I hope, that Republicans in Congress will develop a spine and will simply say to him, no.
Another thing that Trump wants to do, and we've heard him say the whole drill baby drill thing. We know that President Biden put a new prohibition on oil and gas leases, and that is in 625 million acres of federal waters. But the thought is that will be a symbolic action, because when Trump comes in, he's likely to shake that up and get rid of it if he can.
He can't undo it. Only Congress can do that. At least that's my reading of the law. So again, it'll require the Democrats and enough Republicans to just say no.
We'll see. He says it's ridiculous. Trump says, I'll unban it immediately. He was talking to a radio host, and he said it'll be changed on day one. So maybe he'll get in there on day one and realize that the things he wants to do, maybe he can't quite do so easily.
So there's another way of going this, Kim, and this is what worries me. He may on day one issue the appropriate orders, and then they may be appealed to the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court is stacked now in favor of Donald Trump. So things that may not be permissible now may become permissible with a pliant Supreme Court.
Sure, with everybody on his side. Yeah.
Not everybody, but a majority.
Pretty scary. Trump is once again, he's now asking the Supreme Court to block the sentencing in his hush money case. Another appeals court said, no, we're not going to do it. But the judge, even though the punishment is set to be hardly nothing, wants to haul him into court for this sentencing date. And Trump is fighting it and does not want to go. And so, as you mentioned, the Supreme Court being pliant toward Trump's will, now Trump is asking the Supreme Court to call off the sentencing, which is due to be set for Friday, right, in this case. So we'll see what they're doing. The prosecutors are filing a response by tomorrow morning, and Trump wants an immediate stay of the scheduled sentencing. it seems to me like, I don't know if it matters. If he gets symbolically hauled into court for the sentencing hearing where he's not really going to be punished?
Well, it depends what you mean by punishment. He's not going to jail. There
Nope.
won't necessarily be a fine,
Right.
but there will be a finding by a court of law. And in the end, that's what matters, that he be held accountable. I don't care about the punishment. I care about the crime being affirmed by a court. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to avoid. I mean, it's I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a great historian. And we said if we had written a novel describing what has happened, we would have been laughed out of the publishing house because nobody would have believed it.
Yeah, this is it's wild. I don't know, with a slap on the wrist. It seems less of on the record and more of just an attempt to publicly humiliate him.
No,
right?
It's being held accountable by a court of law.
There's no punishment.
No, the punishment is the verdict and the affirmation of the verdict.
The verdict has already been handed down. I mean, that's done.
That's right. And now
they're not going to repeal the fact that he's a felon. So that's the punishment. You stay a felon.
Yes, but understand, his sentencing affirms that. The judge may say, given your circumstance, I can't sentence you to jail. I'm not going to give you a fine. But let the record state clearly that you were convicted and you are a felon. That's what I hope comes out. Now, the other thing is Jack Smith's report. We were talking about that at the very top of it.
Right.
There are two things Jack Smith is investigating. One, the question of Donald Trump's claims that the election was stolen in 2020. And second, the question of his misuse of government property in the Mar-a-Lago Papers case. All I want is the affirmation that those two things happened. And that's why that report is going to be so critical. And I'm looking forward, when the report comes out, to reading it and analyzing it. And for those who say, well, he's getting off scot-free, he isn't. History will judge him harshly. What I worry about, in addition to history, is what's going to happen after January 20th. From 12 noon on January 20th, he'll be president of the United States, the most powerful job in the world. And the difference in this inauguration is that Donald Trump knows the levers of power. And by the way, for those who doubted us when we talked about the Heritage Foundation's blueprint and said, he's never read the report. Nonsense. The people he's putting in power, the positions he's taken, are all consistent with the Heritage Foundation, which is a major conservative think tank. And so, look, I wish I had better news, but I can tell you, as somebody who is a student of the American presidency, we have never had an American president who has made the kind of rhetorical flourishes prior to the inauguration, which, if Donald Trump follows through, will leave us in chaos. And that really worries me.
You mentioned you're being a student of the American presidency. And I saw a story, here it is right here. And I wanted to get your comment on this. More than half of Americans believe Joe Biden's presidency will be historically viewed as poor or below average. That's according to a new poll conducted by Gallup. It showed that just 6% of Americans believe that President Biden did an outstanding job as president. Just over a quarter said he was an average president. So
sounds like the evaluation of Harry Truman. Go back and look at the polls when Harry Truman left office. He was viewed, as a failure. Now he's viewed as a near great or a great president of the United States. When George W. Bush left office, his polls were in the toilet. But George W. Bush said, don't worry, history will be kinder to me. And he's right. They have been a little bit kinder. But what can I tell you about Donald Trump? Every historical review that I have used judged his first presidency as the worst presidency of the 20th century and among the worst in the history of the United States. I believe the second term is on track to even beat that record. And that's a shame, because we can't afford, in a world like this, to have a president who makes such outlandish statements and who alienates our allies. Do you understand? These are the countries we work with. These are the countries we have to, Canada and Mexico, for God's sake. It's so mind-boggling. And by the way, what a contrast. I was not a fan of Jimmy Carter on many levels. There are many things in his administration with which I disagreed profoundly. And I did not vote for him for re-election. I voted for John Anderson. But Carter proved in his ex-presidency to try to do things that helped people. Again, his policy statements were sometimes off the wall. But Carter deserves credit for at least being a genuine, sincere, dedicated individual. Donald Trump is just a disaster all the way around. Let me give you another example. He says that if the hostages are not released by the time he takes the oath of office, that he will respond accordingly. Well, let me tell you, I want those hostages released. But what is he going to do? Is he going to hit Iran? Because that's what he's going to have to do. What about the Houthis? Is he going to step up our attack on the Houthis? And Hamas, which already we know is a terrorist organization. It's not enough to just make these statements. He has to be able to back them up. And what I'm worried about is I don't know that he will back them up responsibly.
We have a question from Luis with a contribution as well. Thank you, Luis. He says, JR, what's the difference between us and Putin? He said, I'm sure he felt that he needed to annex Ukraine and Gulf of America and annex Canada. We're going into sane-splain.
I agree. I have no dispute with you, Luis, at all. You're absolutely right. It is as wrong as what Putin is suggesting and doing.
Well, I mean, we haven't bombed anyone or taken anybody by force yet. And I would like to think that this is just all grandstanding. And because Trump does this, he seems to chit. He seems to talk open his mouth, and then there's really nothing to back it up.
No, I don't agree with you at all. I think he opens his mouth, and where he can do what he wants to do, he's going to do. I'll bet you there are going to be tariffs. There are going to be pardons. There is no doubt that he is going to pursue the Panama Canal Treaty. There is a provision of the Panama Canal Treaty that allows us to come back if it's not being handled properly. He's going to push all of these things to the hilt. And all I can tell you is when a president of the United States makes a policy statement, the world listens.
Yeah.
Do you think that the European nations, NATO in particular, are happy with Donald Trump at this point? No, they're scared out of their wits.
No, but I read they're making plans that they're trying to figure out how to deal with him.
Or get around him, which is what states are doing. Look what's happening in San Francisco. We have a new mayor, Daniel Lurie, and we have a governor, Gavin Newsom. They're working together to prevent things that Donald Trump may do, which will be harmful to the state of California and to the city of San Francisco. I mean, I must tell you, it is almost inconceivable to me that we have a person as president of the United States to be who is so irresponsible. And I think we're going to suffer the consequences. I hate to say it.
I was reading a story about Trump's merch. He's got the watches and the sneakers and the Bible and all of these things. And I was reading this story in CNN saying that all of the merchandise, especially the newest merchandise, is raising these questions of conflicts of interest. Will that matter at all? Or do you think we'll see a presidency where he's still trying to sell stuff while he's in office?
More than that, he is not giving up controlling interest in his companies. He is still going to run the Trump Industries as well. He made a sort of an attempt, or maybe it was PR in 2016 and early 17, to separate himself from his company. He's not doing that anymore. He doesn't care. He's going to go ahead and do it the way he wants. Question is, will he go too far for the American people? And will the American people really be listening? When I say the American people, look, Trump didn't win an overwhelming victory. It was actually a pretty narrow election. But to him, it's a mandate because he now controls, he believes, House, Senate, Presidency, and Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, that's a pretty effective combination. And so it's going to be a fascinating ride. Somebody asked me, what are you going to be talking about in the weeks ahead? I said, Donald Trump. I almost have to apologize for it. There's so much else in the world to be talking about. But Donald Trump does suck up all the oxygen in the room.
He is apparently upset because he thought that on day one, all of his nominees would be, a sure thing and confirmed, but there's been some delays. And it's not going to happen. He's not going to come in on day one and get all his people in place like he wanted and just get the ball rolling and get it going. So he's going to have to wait, and he's not happy about it.
That's the process. There have to be hearings on many of these nominees. He can put anybody in the White House he wants. There's no presidential confirmation on that. Somebody like Tulsi Gabbard in charge of American intelligence agencies. That's not required a congressional approval. That's a presidential appointment. But it's scary as hell. And thank God we have a checks and balances process. The only question is whether the Republicans will be willing to exert the power that they have to put a check on this president's. He believes he has unchecked power, and he doesn't. Thank God.
They're also criticizing Governor Gavin Newsom today regarding the fires in Southern California. Trump took to Truth Social, saying, "I will demand this incompetent governor allow beautiful, clean, fresh water to flow into California. He is to blame for this." And then Elon Musk joined in, saying, retweeting something about a delay in building dams and saying that it was crazy that Governor Gavin Newsom didn't allow this to happen. I don't think that this fire is Governor Gavin Newsom's fault. I don't know how you feel.
It is. How can you blame a natural disaster?
You can't.
On an elected public official. It's crazy.
No.
And Elon Musk has no business involved in any of this. Nobody elected Elon Musk. And that's another tragedy. Look, Elon Musk bought his way to being Donald Trump's best friend. Hundreds of millions of dollars he spent in this election, which may have tipped the balance. Who knows? This is so disturbing to me. I have no words to describe it. But we're going to have to see as things progress, not on speculation, but what Donald Trump does, what Elon Musk does, and what the relationship will be.
Do you have anything as we wrap up together that you want to say about Jimmy Carter? I know that the funeral will be taking place, that we're still with the flags at half staff and in national mourning.
Did you hear Donald Trump on that?
You know, he doesn't want the flags flown at half staff. It's an ego thing, right?
It's so disgraceful. Yeah. There are no words. But let me answer your question. I was not a fan of Jimmy Carter on many levels.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Carter was a good, honest, decent man who, by the way, did some great things as president, including the Camp David Accords, including the Panama Canal Treaty Agreement, including the expansion of the EPA, including environmental protection. His work on those levels was great. No president is perfect. Somebody asked me, where does Jimmy Carter end up on the scale of presidents? He's about in the middle, I'm delighted to tell you that history will be a lot kinder to Jimmy Carter than the election of 1980, which he lost. But his place in history, the things he did were important. They contributed to America and American security. And the honors he is receiving now as a former president, including flags being at half staff, is entirely appropriate. And may I add, and some of our listeners may not be happy with this, the same thing will happen when Donald Trump dies. When Donald Trump passes from the scene, he will receive all the honor because he was president of the United States of America. And then my old friend Bill Ridings, I used to interview him every President's Day because he is the one who put together the rating of the presidents. I wish I could do it again on President's Day. Maybe we'll do it here on the Mark Thompson program.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, a lot of presidents look at their last days in office, as I'm sure President Biden is doing right now, and thinking, as you said, will history be kind to them? What will their legacy be when people look back at them? I don't think that Trump cares about that. I don't think he cared about it last time, and I don't think he'll care about it this time, how he'll be remembered. But
that's why, no, he does. He's building a presidential library. He just had from ABC News this huge financial settlement, not for him, but for his presidential library. You bet he cares. And he believes, and I hate to disagree with you, but you should talk to my wife about that. I know I disagree all the time. Donald Trump has his eye on history. He believes that by doing what he's doing, he will be viewed as one of America's great presidents. We, who are critics of Donald Trump, who support him, by the way, when we agree with him, like the Abraham Accords, a great achievement. But when we disagree, we disagree. Donald Trump does not tolerate disagreement of any kind. And that shows the weakness of a leader. The best thing you can do as a leader is to listen to everybody and then be decisive. Harry Truman was such a president. You know, they used to say about Truman, to err is Truman. Like to err is human, to err is Truman. And he was insulted. People called him the senator from Pendergast because he got his job because of a political boss by the name of Pendergast in Missouri. Harry Truman, when he left office, people said, well, look how low your ratings are. He said, don't worry. I have faith they'll come back. And I admire that kind of spunk. The important thing for a president to do is what they perceive as being the right thing. But when you disagree with a president, you have to be able to speak out. Remember, Harry Truman is the one who seized the steel mills, and the Supreme Court overturned that and said, nope, you can't do that, Mr. President. It is the constraints on the presidency which are going to be so critical.
Heather says, it just sucks we have to wait for all this stuff to become history before anyone takes it seriously. It's happening now. I feel when you're talking about how people are to be remembered, and I thought this as January 6th and the attacks on the Capitol were unfolding, that how can anybody look at that and feel like they're on the right side of history? You can't possibly.
Oh, wait, it was a loving day.
Yeah,
they came peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
There was no violence. There was no attempt to obstruct the constitutional process. And people believe it, Kim. They believe this rubbish. And when Donald Trump issues those pardons on January 20th, which he says he is going to do, I hope the conscience of the American people is shocked. And in a sense, Heather is right when she said that it's a shame we have to wait. But there's nothing we can do. The American people have spoken, and not by a large majority. They gave Donald Trump the reins of power. And now our job is to try to be what Wendell Willkie called the loyal opposition. I believe in this country. I believe in the balances of this country. And I believe we have a right to oppose any person in political office with whom we disagree. And that's what we have to do. We have to have a loyal opposition. And by the way, the Democrats have got a lot of rebuilding to do. They have to be not just a party of negativity, but a party that expresses positive expressions of how America can be better. So this is going to be a fascinating time. I wish with all my heart that KGO still existed so we could be on the air talking with our listeners, arguing, debating, doing everything we used to do. We are now more limited. And your whole thing there on Mark Zuckerberg and what's happening in his empire is disgraceful. No single person should have that kind of power, pure and simple. And I feel the same way about Elon Musk. Elon Musk, do you know what Elon Musk is doing now? He's backing the furthest right political party in Germany.
Crazy.
And listen, it's to me, well, this comment from Rose, it's an embarrassment. He's threatening our allies. You're right, it's an embarrassment. But it's an embarrassment that he is in the White House at all. And I don't say that because I'm a Democrat. And Neil's comment here, Carl's comment rather, is nothing is shocking anymore. The chaos will continue as long as he is given power. Carl, you're right. But we who are shocked have to speak out. We have to be the ones who raise the alarm. It may not be enough, but I like this. Bev says,
isn't this great? Rev says, annex Mexico. Then we don't have to worry about the border anymore.
That is a brilliant notion.
Right? There you go. Come on. It's crazy.
Kim, thank God we have the Mark Thompson program.
Thank goodness, indeed. And thank goodness for you for coming on. Thank you so much, John Rothman, for being here with me and for talking politics and presidential history. I
look forward to it I cut short. I was at the Fromm Institute. They had a meet and greet, and I said, I've got to be home in time to do the Mark Thompson program.
Nice.
Please give Mark my warmest good wishes. Tell him I'm glad he's safe. To all of our friends in Southern California who are listening, our hearts, our prayers are with you, and we hope that when we recover from this disaster, we're ready. And let me make one other comment to the people of San Francisco. We better be alert. I did my podcast on the Voice of San Francisco this morning, dealing with the threat San Francisco faces in the event of disaster, from earthquake and from fire. And we'd better be ready. And these are things that, that's why we have a government, to help us be prepared. I'm anxious to hear what Donald Trump will say he will do for Southern California. He can blame Gavin Newsom from here to hell and back again. But believe me, it wouldn't matter who was governor of California, we'd have this problem.
I think so too, but they don't like California anymore. You've got Musk pulling out to, Tesla putting everything in Texas. You've got now Zuckerberg saying, nope, we don't want the Californians to look at the facts. We want the Texans to look at the facts. They don't like California. So I can see them, and as a matter of fact, I remember Trump saying, do this my way or I'll withhold federal aid the next time you have a fire.
And he may still do that.
I think so. And I don't trust that he comes in and takes care of us as a
No,
state.
I don't either.
The way he would other
but
states.
I'm going to tell you, we've got to put all the heat on him that we can.
Right.
We have to stand up for what we believe. I refuse to concede the sense of purpose that I've always had, not only in trying to tell the truth as I see it, but also in battling for those political causes in which I believe. A loyal opposition is what is called for now. An opposition to Donald Trump and his absolutely ridiculous statements about American policy, on foreign policy, and some of his domestic initiatives as well. We have to stand strong, do what we can, and I am very grateful to you and Mark for allowing me the opportunity each week to share my observations with our listeners.
Well, you can find John Rothman every day. Around the Political World with John Rothman is the podcast to look up. And you're on the Voice of San Francisco as well.
Yes, just go to under the podcast heading. I record every day. I do 10 minutes every day for the Voice of San Francisco, 10 minutes every day for Around the Political World with John Rothman. Doesn't cost you anything, and I'm delighted to have you. And Kim, again, my condolences on the passing of your father.
Appreciate it.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks, John Rothman. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. Thanks for being here. John Rothman, everybody. I love it. Let's do some news here on the Mark Thompson Show. We're going to get to the news right now. There's a lot to talk about, a lot going on in the world that we need to cover. So let's get right to it. Albert? On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. At least 2 people are dead, civilians, and more than 1,000 structures damaged as Southern California wildfires continue to rage. Officials are urging residents to leave when they are told to do so. The Palisades fire erupted yesterday morning. It has grown to more than 5,000 acres. It has destroyed about 1,000 structures. Businesses and schools are being forced to close due to the Southern California wildfires. Universal Studios Hollywood announced that it will not be open today due to wind and fire conditions. Meanwhile, Pepperdine University closed 2 of its campuses for the day due to ongoing firefighting efforts and road closures in that area. The public is paying respects to former President Jimmy Carter today. A long line of people began filing past Carter's casket in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda last night. The 39th president, who died December 29th at his home in Georgia, will lie in state at the Capitol until 7 a.m. on Thursday. The South is bracing for the region's biggest snowstorm in the years as we deal with fires in California. They are dealing with a big snow. Starting tomorrow, snow will start to fall in 10 southern and central states, including Northeast Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, parts of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. This will likely cause dangerous travel conditions, leading to road closures and flight cancellations and delays. The foreign minister of France is pushing back on President-elect Trump's interest in gaining control of Greenland. The French official said in an interview with radio station France Inter that the EU's 27 member states would never accept any attempt on an EU territory, which is very similar to what John Rothman was saying moments ago. The autonomous Danish territory has said it is not interested in becoming part of the United States. Attorney General Merrick Garland says he plans to release a report on President-elect Trump's election interference case. That, according to a court filing on Wednesday. The Department of Justice told a court of appeals Garland will release Volume 1 of Special Counsel Jack Smith's final report to Congress and to the public. It reportedly goes over allegations that Trump tried to change the results of the 2020 election. San Francisco will officially have a new mayor later today. Daniel Lurie will be sworn in outside City Hall late this morning. He becomes the city's 46th mayor. Lurie is planning to have a busy inauguration day schedule. He plans to volunteer at St. Anthony's in the morning before spending time in the Tenderloin and Ghirardelli Square before the swearing-in ceremony. This evening, Lurie will attend a special night market in the Chinatown area. There are efforts underway to pick a new Alameda County District Attorney after former DA Pamela Price was recalled in November. 15 people have thrown their hat into the ring to become the next Alameda County DA. The Board of Supervisors set to vet all candidates and then pick finalists next week before the public interviews of at least 3 candidates take place January 20th. A new DA will be chosen by the end of the month and sworn in the first week of February. Former Representative Barbara Lee saying today that she will be running for the mayor of Oakland, trying to take control of a city with a huge budget deficit and mayoral recall as well. Barbara Lee, 78 years old, big name recognition in her home city. Her opponents so far include former city council member Lauren Taylor, who's a more moderate Democrat. So we'll see what happens there. There's a special election in Oakland for mayor scheduled for April 15th. The changes are coming to eBay. eBay listings are coming to Facebook Marketplace now. Meta says this. I know, you're going to have it all in one spot. Meta says this will be a test launch in the US, France, and Germany. So buyers will be able to browse listings on Facebook and then complete their transactions on eBay. A robbery suspect is behind bars in California after allegedly using a self-driving Waymo vehicle as a getaway car. What could go wrong? The Los Angeles Police Department says the man robbed a Ralph's grocery store last night, got into some kind of fight with a store security guard, and then took off in a Waymo vehicle. Officers tracked down the vehicle, which pulled over in Arlington Heights, and then they arrested the suspect. Waymo says its software is designed to recognize police sirens and lights, and the vehicles will pull over. Using that as a getaway car, that would be a no-go. The famous New Mexico home of Walter White is up for sale. Featured in the smash hit series Breaking Bad as the home of the White family, the Albuquerque house is on the market for just under $4 million. The owner of the home recently said to a local TV station, the fan visits soon became just too much to deal with, and the recent passing of the woman's parents led to the decision to list that
the
home.
videos are... I feel bad for taking joy in it, but there's a couple really funny videos of these people trying to go look at the house, and she's just really grumpy. It's like she's like extraordinarily not accommodating for all these huge fans of the show.
Well, you would think if you bought a house that was famous for that reason, that you would be, a little bit more, I don't know, understanding that people like the show.
Yeah, they're
don't know.
fans. Maybe you could like try to benefit from it. Maybe like, hey, do you want to go take a look? Yeah, I'll charge
Sure.
you. Like maybe set something up like that. But
Little tours,
she was
right?
very confrontational, and
Yeah. I can imagine that it would be frustrating. I think the people that own the house in San Francisco that was was that show?
The Full House.
Yeah, the Full House
Painted
house.
Ladies. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily like people always lurking outside. And the Mrs. Doubtfire house, they had people, always driving by to see the house. I get that it would be frustrating, but then again, if you bought it after the fact, after it was already used in a production, then you have to know that this is going to happen.
I'm sure they got some money from that too. So maybe I don't know.
I don't know
there's some.
either.
I think there's a way that they could all live happily with that house, but
Nope.
I'm sure the
Well,
people who live on Lombard Street don't like all the cars driving.
no, they
by.
don't. We know they don't. Well, this is I guess the next person that buys the house, buyer beware. You're going to have looky-loos coming through all the time. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And it is, I maintain, the best tea that you will taste. Mark says it is the best coffee you will taste. So the things that they do the best. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It is all organic. The beans are sourced from women-owned farms. Fresh, very fresh coffee. The tea is amazing. I love I'm still addicted to the vanilla tea. Just so good. The winter solstice tea that came out for the holidays is amazing as well. Check it out at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And if you end up with anything in your online cart, please make sure that you take advantage of your exclusive discount from the Mark Thompson Show. Enter Mark T at checkout, MARKT, no spaces in between, and you'll get your 10% discount. And I'm telling you, with everything happening in the world, we definitely need the good coffee and the good tea. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And our thanks to Cliff and the folks at Coachella Valley Coffee for sponsoring the news here on The Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod. Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Call me a liar. Know what you call me?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret now?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
It is the Mark Thompson Show. Thank you for sticking with us. Yeah, Mark Thompson not here today because of the fires in Southern California. And we had a message for Mark from Rose. Please let Mark know our prayers are for him and his family. Someone else writing that they hope Mark's house doesn't burn down. He already had one burn down. So let's hope. Let's really hope that it doesn't happen again. Regarding Coachella Valley Coffee, Murphy writes, I take the Coachella K-Cups with me whenever I stay at a Hyatt, and I can brew it right in the room. Good plan. Love it. Ray, with a $20 contribution to the show, and a lovely message for me that he's sorry about my dad. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Ray. Really, really nice of you to say.
Mark is still emailing me and sending stuff. He's still thinking about the show. And
what is he saying?
This video from the fires, unfortunately.
What
this
is
isn't from his home, but this
okay.
he saw this on Twitter and he sent this over to me.
I saw this earlier as well. I saw it on Facebook. And if it's real, because now we have to question everything, right? I'm very concerned about the people inside. If you look at what's happening there, these folks, according to the Facebook post, were stuck in their home. And I don't know, if you're surrounded by flames like this, how you get out, and where it would be best to seek shelter in your home, or to try to put yourself in the safest place. But that is really, really scary.
Very
Horrible.
scary. And this also, the fires might also affect usually on Wednesdays, we have Belinda Weymouth with us today. We're not
Yeah.
sure if we'll
She
have
said
her
that
on today.
She said, I was just looking at that during the break, and she said, I don't think I can do the show today, but I'll be in touch if that changes. So far, she hasn't been. So we do have some environmental stories that we can bring up, but we have some other things to talk about as well. Before we get to that, though, I did want to thank Luis for a $5 super sticker who says, irony, a dude who frequently shows his ignorance, loves the uneducated, probably reads at a 6th grade level, building a library. Absolutely. I saw a comment from Heather earlier, a library, he can't even read. Oh, thank you for the comment and for the contribution to the show. And I should say, take the opportunity to say that this show is crowdfunded. And the whole reason that we are able to do this is because of your generosity. So you can visit us at themarkthompsonshow.com. You'll find the PayPal links, the Patreon links. Everything is there if you would like to be one of the supporters of The Mark Thompson Show. And we appreciate that very much. themarkthompsonshow.com. And of course, the super chats and super stickers are always open for business.
Feel free to drop us a like, maybe subscribe. We are above 80,000, 83,000 maybe.
Is it 83,000 now? What's the current number? This is exciting.
Oh, I could take I could take a look.
Yeah, you take a look. I'm
84,000 actually. Yep, 84.
Look at that. Okay, well
on our
done.
way to 85.
I like it. Nice. So keep the subscriptions coming and the contributions coming, and the Mark Thompson Show will keep rolling on. Let's talk about homelessness for just a moment before we get into the environment. It seems like no matter, speaking of money, how much we throw at this problem, we continue to have a growing homeless population in the state of California. New data published on SF Gate shows the Bay Area's homeless crisis worsened in 2024. There is a 6% rise in homelessness now, pushing the number to an estimated 38,891 homeless people in the Bay Area. That is according to new federal data from the Point in Time Count report. This point in time count is done to see how many people are homeless across the United States. They count people in shelters. They count people sleeping outside. U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development requires any county or jurisdiction that gets funding to address homelessness to do these counts every 2 years. In other parts of the Bay Area, Santa Clara County saw a 5% rise in homelessness from its last count. They have 10,394 unhoused. That's the most among the 9 Bay Area counties, as reported by NBC Bay Area. San Francisco's homeless population, grew 7% from the 2022 count to 8,323. Alameda County, though, they saw a 3% decline, which is their first decline in a decade. The city of Oakland specifically saw a 9% increase, though. They have 5,485 homeless residents. It is the highest per capita homelessness rate of the Bay Area's 3 major cities. The biggest reason, they say the primary cause in Oakland, housing loss. 34% people lost their homes. So since 2015, homelessness in the Bay Area has surged 46%. That is according to an analysis done by the Mercury News. While we've seen a little bit of progress here and there, it seems like, no matter how much money we throw at this problem, we're still looking at a homeless population on the rise. And I wanted to mention that in San Jose, the leaders there are doing something about the RVs, homeless people living in RVs along streets. They are selecting 30 locations where they will be telling people that are living in their RVs to either move it, accept shelter, or be towed away. And that is it. You cannot stay in your RV. You cannot live in it on the streets of San Jose. They approved this plan in November, but it is now coming to fruition. There are a lot of people that live in their RVs that are they shuffle them around, or they find a place and then that becomes their home. So these are going to be tow-away zones, these 30 streets in and around San Jose. They say the neighborhoods have been severely impacted by all of this. And so San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan says he wants to acknowledge it, that clearing San Jose of the streets of RVs is a long time coming. Many of these RVs are up against schools and shelters and other environments that can be deemed unsafe. So they feel like they have to do something, and they'll be towing away these RVs. Let's do a stories from the sky. Albert, what do you think? I think we can we have a lot to talk about.
Comments here on it. Homeless from other states come to California too, from Justin.
They do. That's true.
Rain also has the same kind of a comment. I'd like to know how many of those new homeless folks in SF are from other cities and states. A lot of them, I think, get one-way tickets, right? From a lot of them from the East Coast. They send them out here. Unfortunately,
well, I mean, so if you were homeless, would you want to be homeless in a snowy, cold state?
Yeah.
I mean, even in San Francisco, during the winter, we know that homeless people die on the streets because of exposure. But I can't imagine being homeless in a state where it's below freezing. So
yeah,
I think it makes sense. Yeah. Oh, and Karen says there's a huge homeless population in Hawaii as well. I would imagine for the same reason. A few years ago, I was in Honolulu, and there were a lot of homeless people sleeping on the beach there. And I was thinking to myself, if you have to be homeless, right? If you this is your lot in life, then being in a place that's warm, where you could sleep on the beach, maybe is a better option than
sure, but also one of the most expensive places to live as well. So
well, sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, John Watson says one-way bus tickets.
One way, yeah.
Uncle Russ would like a one-way ticket to Kauai.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, me and my girl, we would love to stay out there.
Yeah. That's a beautiful state. All right, speaking of travel, let's get into it. We have a stories from the sky.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
Well, United doing something really nice because of the wildfires in Southern California. The United Airlines folks are issuing travel waivers to people, which is really lovely to help affected customers. The waiver is for passengers booked on United Airlines flights out of Hollywood Burbank or Los Angeles International Airport between January 7th and 9th. This will let impacted travelers reschedule their journey until January 15th, which is really, really nice. So we have, look at this video. I think this was taken from aboard a plane. Look at that. With the view overhead from
crazy.
The wildfires. Yeah. Look at the wide area affected by these wildfires. Absolutely amazing. I was wondering though, Albert, when you have these winds that are upwards of 60 miles per hour, how safe it is to fly in this type of weather.
I'm not sure if I mean some of these aircrafts are really large and I think could handle that, but I'm not quite sure about that. But
yeah, I don't know.
It would be, I mean, especially with the Santa Ana winds. These are the same. This is like the same shot. If you took this shot on January 31st, like they're all fireworks, and now it's just fire, actual fire.
Wow.
So,
what a view out that plane, man. And so United Airlines again doing right by its customers. We have this incident. And this one was more closer to the Bay Area. This man has been banned from flying after allegedly urinating on a passenger during a flight out of SFO.
What?
I know. This happened on United Airlines. This man allegedly urinated on a Bay Area resident during a flight from San Francisco to the Philippines. It happened December 27th. When Jerome Gutierrez of Hillsborough was traveling in business class from SFO to Manila. According to his family members, he got up from his seat, another man got up from his seat and began urinating on Jerome about 4 hours into the flight. What a nightmare.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
This is a new one. The man's stepdaughter says he was asleep and buckled in and was surprised when he looked at the man and he thought he was dreaming. After the man had finished, Jerome realized he was soaked from his stomach down in that man's urine. Ew. United flight attendants asked
My bad.
Jerome.
I'm sorry.
No, that's more than a my bad. I'm sorry. United flight attendants asked Jerome not to approach the man in fear there would be some kind of violent confrontation. They said the United provided Jerome pajamas to wear so he could get out of those soaked clothes. And the stepdaughter says they put the needs of the airline before my stepdad's health. I'm so disgusted and in shock with how United handled this. That is a biohazard. The plane should have turned around to address this issue. I don't know. I tend to think that's a little bit extreme. They gave him pajamas. They let him, they helped him clean up, gave him something to wear, and having a violent confrontation in the skies really does no good. United only says there was a passenger disturbance on that flight, that the airline asked the police to meet the aircraft when it arrived in Manila Saturday morning, and that they have now banned that passenger. I don't know what else they could do. I mean, I don't know what else she wanted them to do. Turn the plane around because of that? 4 hours into the flight? I don't think so. Yeah, I can see that she's upset, but I don't think so. Pamela Anderson is saying that she was confronted on a plane by an angry passenger who thought she was someone else. She is telling the story now of how she was confronted aboard a flight after being mistaken by a member of the country band The Chicks, formerly the Dixie Chicks. She was interviewed about her new movie called The Last Showgirl, and she said she was targeted by a fellow passenger. She said, this one time I was on a flight, and this guy came up to me and said, do you know what this country's done for you? And she said, oh my God, what have I done? She said, I looked back and he was angry, and the stewardess had to handcuff him to the chair because he was trying to attack me. This is what Pamela Anderson says. She said he ends up thinking that she was a member of the Dixie Chicks during this whole Dixie Chick thing. She said, referring to the criticism of the band after its members spoke out against the United States invasion of Iraq in 2003. She said, Anderson, I almost got killed on a plane. And she said, I was a little bit scared to fly after that incident. That's pretty scary. I can imagine.
That's not her usual fan interaction, I'm sure.
No, people are crazy. Wow. This seems to be happening over and over and over again. 2 people were found dead in the landing gear compartment of a JetBlue plane after it landed in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The bodies were discovered on Monday night during a routine post-flight maintenance inspection at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. The deaths are being investigated. Both of the individuals were men. Their identities have not yet been confirmed. Detectives trying to research and investigate everything regarding this situation, how the individuals got on the plane, how long they were on the plane. At this point, they say they don't have much information. Autopsies will be done to determine the cause and manner of death. But isn't it a given? Don't we already know this, Albert, that people that are in the landing gear of planes and climb up in there are subject to extreme temperatures, and most do not survive it?
Yeah, do they ever look at those screens? A lot of these planes have those screens, and they show the temperatures of how it is in that altitude. It's like negative, very cold.
Right, negative, very cold. Yes.
And I'm sure there's zero insulation in there, and they're not trying to make the wheel well human safe. So
no.
I can't imagine what that body and those people went through to do that.
Horrible. Yeah. It's been in the news recently. We've seen other incidents like this as well. Just last month, a body was discovered in the wheel well of a plane on arrival at Kahului, Maui. So that plane left Chicago. Can you imagine flying in the wheel well from Chicago to Maui? That's a long flight. So, and they don't know how that individual accessed the wheel well either. Pretty scary.
Yeah, how are these people even getting there?
You'd think the access to the
getting through the
tarmac would
fences
be
of the
restricted.
tarmac?
Yeah. Weird.
Dodging airplanes, running to this plane.
United Airlines also is going to bring Musk's Starlink on flights by spring. They are saying they expect to begin testing Starlink in February for in-flight internet service and to first offer the connectivity on commercial flights operated this spring. United says they will outfit their 2-cabin regional fleet with the service by the end of 2025. Pardon me. And they'll have the first Starlink-enabled plane on major routes in the air by the end of the year. And that Starlink will eventually be available on all of its flights.
And then the Starlink is actually very good on board. You could actually stream like YouTube and stream Spotify without even having to download anything.
Oh, wow.
What do you think about your little also high altitude? You're closer to the actual Starlink, right?
Sure.
The satellites up there. So
I guess it would make sense.
I guess Elon is actually being helpful during this time.
I'm conflicted about that. He keeps sending more and more of these satellites up there that the experts are saying will end up as space junk. And
there's already currently a lot of space junk up there.
Absolutely.
That is a huge problem. There's a lot of just crap up there, but
you
know, Elon wants the misinformation to be spread on your United flights from
exactly. There's nowhere that you are safe from misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah.
Come on. Lastly, how hot is too hot on a plane? The FAA is trying to figure this out. They've launched a new study as airlines face some scrutiny over cabin temperatures that can reach 90 degrees during boarding. It does get a little warm on there. They've got a lot of passenger complaints to contend with. And so now there's a federal safety study as part of the FAA's latest reauthorization. They're trying to figure out how hot is too hot. So they've contacted the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine to look into this subject. They say they've yet to fully develop a plan. Pending the study's scope, the study will be done over a 1-year period, examining the health and safety effects of the minimum and maximum aircraft cabin temperatures from passengers and crew. And that became kind of a largely talked about topic over the summer because we had some record heat. States like California were expanding workplace safety regulations, trying to protect workers from rising temperatures. There was a Politico investigation that revealed that neither Delta nor United nor Southwest had a maximum cabin temperature at the time that would prevent passengers from boarding. So
a lot of times during boarding on these aircrafts, only the pilots and maintenance workers have the ability to adjust the temperature. So a lot of times it's just the flight crew on board. So they have no capabilities of cooling down the aircraft. So
United Airlines allows cabin temperatures to hit 90 degrees before they consider it too hot to board. JetBlue recently raised its threshold from 85 degrees or lowered it from 85 degrees to 80 degrees. So
80 seems fine. I think 80 would be a nice little temperature. That's already pushing it. So
I think so too. I think that's perfect. Well done, JetBlue. But it's all part of the FAA's broader oversight of cabin air quality to ensure that passenger compartments are free from harmful concentrations of smoke, vapor, or toxic fumes. They have to have a good ventilation system that supplies a half pound of fresh air per minute for each passenger, comparable to other public spaces. So this is all part of this whole passenger compartment safety situation. There you go. And that is Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
So I know we don't have Belinda here today for It's the Planet Stupid because of the fires, but there are a couple of stories that I would like to talk about, and they involve new national monuments in California. So let's do it anyway, Albert. It's the Planet Stupid.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth. A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet Stupid.
No. It's the planet Stupid.
President Biden is protecting a very prominent piece of California's desert. This is in between Joshua Tree National Park and the Salton Sea, and it is set to become a federally protected national monument this week. President Biden is officially designating the Chuckwalla National Monument while on a confirmed trip to the eastern Coachella Valley region on Tuesday. One official, the National Monument designation, says they say will be providing an additional protection to more than 620,000 acres of existing public lands across the desert that starts just south of the Joshua Tree National Park and Interstate 10 and stretches eastward nearly to the Colorado River. The Chuckwalla National Monument will protect culturally important landscapes of several Native American tribes in this area. Also will provide much needed outdoor recreation opportunities. There's limited park space in this region. There are habitats that also need to be protected for desert wildlife and plants. So this is a pretty big deal, the Chuckwalla National Monument. I also wanted to let you know about another national monument that the president is designating. It is a parting gift to Northern California. It is a national monument that is in the remains of an ancient volcano. And this one is, I believe, near the Shasta area. I'm all locked up, but this is, again, oh gosh, this is such a beautiful area too. I'm not exactly sure.
I'm also locked up. I
know it locked me up.
I did cancel my Chronicle subscription this year, so sorry.
Oh, you did?
I think it's called Little Medicine Lake.
Little Medicine Lake, that's right, and it is a sacred site that is being declared a national monument. The area that we're talking about also is a spot where California returned 2,800 acres of ancestral land to the Shasta Indian Nation. So there are a lot of things going on in this area, and now we have part of this region becoming a national monument. So President Biden leaving office with California, getting
in August of last year, there were some tribal leaders who did urge Biden to do this, so he did follow up on that request.
Yeah, it's a really good thing. So we love it. It's a flurry of the President Biden having this national environmental initiatives as he leaves office. So California benefits in the northern region, in the Shasta region, and also in the Southern California region near Joshua Tree.
That's some good positive notes from waterways. We even got one from Belinda Weymouth about the Klamath River and how they destroyed the dams, and it's opened up that river significantly, and we've had salmon swimming up there this year. So look, I feel good about our bodies of water this year, with at least here in the northern part of the state.
And we also noted earlier the president is protecting 625 million acres of U.S. waterways from drilling. Whether that sticks when President-elect Trump comes into office is anybody's guess, but it's a good thing as he leaves office to protect the environment. So we'll take it. Any way we can get it, we'll take it. And it's the planet, stupid.
More.
It's the planet, stupid.
No, it's the planet, stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I would like to take a look at some of your comments. So yeah, Biden, good for you, says Gordon. Absolutely. Medicine Lake is near Mount Hoffman, writes Michael D. Thank you for that information. Yeah, SF Tesla says, national monuments, Biden brings 2 statutes to recognize the community values. Chuckwalla National Monument, SoCal and NorCal's put by Dorma Volcano. Yeah, we just mentioned that. Garth writing, hello from Nova Scotia, Canada. Thank you for becoming our 11th province. You and Albert are doing a great job. Thinking of Mark and his family. We were evacuated in 2023 due to wildfire, but the home is fine. I'm so glad your home is fine. And yeah, we're all thinking of Mark and Courtney today.
Yeah, Canada got hit huge during that time with the northeast of the United States got hit by fire.
With all the smoke. Yeah, it was awful. Yeah. Jason says President Biden should protect the area and the Koyukuk watershed around the gates of the Arctic to prevent the Ambler Road project. I don't know about that, but I will take it that is a good idea. I'm sure that someone has presented that to him, and I'm not sure why it didn't happen. Thank you for all the comments today, and thank you for all the lovely things that you've said about my dad and trying to lift me up, and I really appreciate that.
And
To
there was a
Mark,
ton of them yesterday as well. We got a good
no,
amount of donations while you were away.
really nice, you guys, really nice. And thank you for on behalf of Mark and Courtney as well for your well wishes for their home and their safety. We just really appreciate it. This community is just the best thing to come out of the demise of KGO radio, and we're so grateful, honestly.
And there's a couple KGO news. Like, I'm not sure if Pat Thurston resigned from KCBS. I think
I heard about that, and she
she
says that she'll
tweeted.
be able to comment more freely now. So we'll probably end up having her on the show more
That would
often.
sound
So
like a great weekly segment. I love Pat
absolutely,
Thurston.
let's
I
get
have
her
a funny
on.
Pat Thurston. Pat Thurston. She was on a lot during the weekends during KGO, and I would I was a fill-in producer. I produced every single show. If it was the holiday season, that's work for me. And
Right.
weekend shows, I worked every weekend. I worked every Sunday morning, and it was like the holiday season. She's asking me if I have any holiday like Christmas stories. I'm like, oh, well, I was like, well, my mom told me that Santa died, and she's like, oh my god. On air, she was just so appalled on air, but I was like, yeah, no, my mom just kept it real. Like, he was alive, but he's no longer here. But we like to celebrate him, basically. But then she was just so surprised on air that I just said that my mom told me that Santa died. I probably shouldn't have worded it like that, but she was very happy to hear that. And then she fell in love with K-pop with the time away. And I used
that
to
was
have
thanks to you.
one
You
K-pop
introduced
song.
her to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I used to play it all the time on KGO going into commercial. A lot of times nobody knew, and then Mark's gave everybody's attention, and everybody started hating against it. But when nobody knew, everybody would just enjoy the music back then. So it's
I never hated against it, and I enjoyed it because it was music I hadn't heard before. Who doesn't want to be
Yeah.
exposed to new things, right?
Of
Yeah.
course, and it's nice to see that the community, and I'm reminded of KGO frequently, even being here. So it was a huge parts of our lives, and I kind of miss. I was just in the area recently. I stayed at the I stayed at the Handlery Union Square Hotel.
Oh, the Handlery. That's a great hotel.
John
Even
used
if
to be a sponsor on the show on KGO, on KNBR.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, even if they hadn't been a sponsor, I still would have stayed at that hotel. It's really nice.
Oh, it's a very nice hotel, but
Yeah.
I booked it knowing that I heard all the commercials all these years. So I was like,
Right.
maybe New Year's, I'll spend New Year's in the city this year.
Yeah.
And I booked it just because it was funny to think about, like hearing all the commercials on
Absolutely.
KGO.
Vilma with a $5 contribution says, don't forget to contribute in order to keep the show going. Thank you, Kim and Albert, for being here for us. Thank you, Vilma, for being here for us. We really appreciate that as well.
And Vilma's been around since the beginning too. So that's a name we've been seeing in the chat and in the super chats this whole time.
Absolutely. Rhonda says Santa died? No, Santa didn't die.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert, everyone. Sorry. Love that comedian you had yesterday. What was his name again? It was J.L.
Coven.
Coven, and his segment is
Cauvin.
it's a breakout segment, and it's has a good amount of views so far.
Yeah, and I think he's got some. If you are in the state of Nevada, he's got some performances coming up in that area. So check his website to see if there may be a performance that you might want to go to. Eileen says, Handlery, a regular KGO sponsor, will always have a soft spot in my heart for the late, great radio station. Yeah, we all. Which I think, and I don't know if we've talked about this on the air, but as of, I think, January 1st, the KGO call letters are officially defunct. They let them.
I think so too. I think I saw it in that one guy's blog that he loves to blog. He used to love blogging about us, and we'd always talk about. I'm not even gonna say his name.
No, don't. I saw it somewhere else, but yeah, the KGO call letters are now officially gone. Yeah. A programming note: there will not be an after party today. The planning for this show, I was planning to resurrect the after party live tomorrow for Trivia Thursday, so that is still the plan. I just wanted to let everyone know that was the case. We will be back tomorrow. Whether Mark is back or not, we won't know for right now. We just have to keep good thoughts about whether their house is standing, and to be glad that they are safe. So we'll we'll be here, Albert and I, tomorrow, regardless. Huge thank you. I just saw this pop in from Harry Magnan for your next Firestone beer at the Red Jack. We love the Red Jack.
I probably should have stayed at. I probably should have made a stop at the Red Jack.
Absolutely. Can't go to San Francisco without going to the Red Jack. No way.
I barely made it to midnight.
I'm telling you. Yeah, got to go to the Red Jack. And thank you, Harry, for that contribution. Really appreciate it. And that is it for the Mark Thompson Show. Again, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you for being here.
Tomorrow's a David Katz day, so that's usually a big day for us.
We've got David Katz, and who knows who else. Maybe I'll try to get Pat Thurston on the show, see how that works out.
That would be great. I miss
Wouldn't
Pat.
it be good? Absolutely. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
All the time. Bye-bye.